Hello and welcome to the Brazilian BA Guests. We are here every week talking about different aspects and now relating those aspects to nimble. Nimble is the organizational capability of sensing and responding to change with precision and speed. And we are having different guests here every week. If you are not subscribed to this channel, please do so right now at the Brazilian BA on YouTube, or you can watch it on LinkedIn. And my guest today is Dr. Annika Steiber. Annika, thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure.
And Annika is a good expert in management. She has wrote several books who are top-selling books on management and talking about innovation. And the subject that we are talking about relates management, innovation, organizations. My question to start this conversation, Annika, is how can management become nimble? Maybe we should start by defining what do you mean when you say about management? I would say that are very different kinds of management or different layers of management. You have product management, project management, organizations management, operations management, and what kind of management have been your speciality or the kind of management that you have been looking for?
Yeah, it's a essential question, and I actually thought about that before we met as well. It's important to define management. For me, is the management of the firm, and you could it's several definitions, but one is that it's the responsibility to plan, to organize, to staff, to monitor an organization, and to create a result. For a for-profit organization, of course, they need to do black figures and make a profit. For a non-profit, that is not that requirement, but it's important to manage the firm as effectively as you can to reach, the result and the end, how
The
the
goals, right? The goals or
yeah,
the outcomes
not just the
expected.
goals. No, I was looking more for the purpose of a business,
Mm,
which is to maybe serve the customers, right?
okay. But a lot of people make a confusion or use the terms management and leadership as the same thing. And I see that sometimes those two terms are used differently. So
Yeah.
you have leadership and management. How do you define those two? Do you separate those two terms?
I do. I do. And I've been in a lot of discussions about if that should be done or not. But for me, I think it helps. Management of the firm is it's a number of things to do's, a number of responsibilities, a number of important, as I said, doing the strategy and planning and doing, think through the organization, the most efficient organization, think through what people we want in the organization, and how to motivate those and get the most out of the people, and how to, what should we measure, right? Because if we measure the wrong thing, we might just focus on efficiency. If we measure other things, we might focus on value realization. So I think it's more than leadership. I think leadership is to a strong leader is, of course, for me, someone that people want to follow. Sometimes I use the concept of natural leaders. That a leader, is usually a visionary. It's a person that have the possibility to lead the people towards that goal or result, or make things happen, and get the most out of people. So I think it's different things, and I think it's a little bit blurry when you start to integrate those two. I know there is a lot of discussion if management is a obsolete term, but I still think that any kind of founder of a company, any CEO of company, or there is a need to do the managerial roles and functions. And then there is a need for very strong and great leadership.
And my question about leadership have to do about your answer. Leadership is someone that we follow, usually
Mm,
someone that we obey, or that have a responsibility to
mm,
plan and say what others have to do. But if we are trying to build a nimble organization, and let's bring nimble to this conversation, and we are looking for an organization who can sense and react to
mm,
change.
mm,
So it's not just an organization able to do the same things it always have done in the same way.
mm,
I need an organization that's able to adapt when
mm.
the context change.
Yeah.
And how can an organization be organized or managed
Mm,
to be such an organization adaptable or nimble?
mm. So, as you know, I'm right now located in Silicon Valley, and I would say the aha, feeling I got when I moved over here many years ago was that the companies here are truly using a nimble management. Um, and I'm going to give some examples and explain why. Um, and I think that is actually the reason why they also become so successful globally. And a lot of their practices have also been copied and pasted by other successful companies now around in the world, that start to truly compete with those giants from here. So I think this nimble management style is much more important than what we might believe. It's not just a philosophical question. This is about competing worldwide. It's not enough about with technology. If you don't if you don't know how to manage the firm effectively today, it doesn't really matter if you first start with the technology. You will not win anyway, and you definitely will not be in a global player and be able to scale. So so saying that, I would say a nimble management is very related to scalability, right? If you think about it, if you have a nimble management, you're able to not just scale internationally, but you can scale and diversify yourself with new business opportunities. And by doing that, you grow and you can create maybe a double-digit growth compared to normal players that have single-digit growth. So we talk about, instead of 2% growth, maybe 20% growth by creating new business opportunities. So for me, it's both horizontally and yeah, in depth, if you think about geographical expansion. So what they do, what I notice is that to be nimble, which I think is really interesting. If you think about management, how I defined it, it's like an umbrella. It's like an umbrella concept, right? So management is including leadership. It has to be an excellent leadership. It's part of managing a firm in a good way. But it's also, to do the strategy is also about, selecting the structure, all that I mentioned. And one thing that I noticed that those companies that I studied do is that they have a very different mindset. Um, you could say that they definitely believe in Schumpeter, the father of innovation, and that presented a new economic theory, saying more or less that the economy is not going into a stable state and then just continue, and where we compete with prices or something else, but instead it's disrupted, and it's disrupted frequently. And the driver for that disruption, which he called creative destruction, is technology. So if it would be any common factor among all the companies in Silicon Valley, is that they truly believe in the importance of technology and the frequent disruptions that will happen. And for that reason, their mindset is already set that they have to be nimble all the time to sense what's going on. Try to understand that new disruption coming. Try to be ready and not, be one of the losers that will fall behind and then, either go bankruptcy or be purchased by someone else. So the mindset, I would say, is extremely important. And what I also think is interesting is that if we talk about the top management in many of those firms, is that they usually are two. So they are one person that is looking towards the future all the time, and then there is one person that is very focused on the internal operations. In a normal organization, the CEO usually need to do both, and it's usually very, dedicated to internal problems. And it could be quality problems, or it could be, whatever. What happened is that they then lose the track of those disruptions coming. They lose, the capability of sensing clearly what's going on and maybe preparing the organization in a good way. The other thing that is affecting their capability to actually to prepare is the culture. So that would be the next big thing. The culture that I noticed in those companies are they do believe in a fast, scalable organization, which almost by default become flatter. So it's a flat organization with decentralized decision power. Because if you think about it, if you push down decision making down to the people that are closer to the problems, and they are allowed to make decisions, it will be much faster response. So that part of the belief in this kind of a flat, fast moving organization is a big part. Also risk tolerance. So if you believe that there will be a next disruptions coming, it might be in 2 years, in 3 years, or 5 years, but it will come. You also allow yourself always a certain risk tolerance. It's embedded as part of the culture, as part of the DNA that you need to allow that risk, and also to set up the organization in a way where you can test and trial and sort of in that way prepare, so when to truly change your business model or not.
Let's decompose some stuff, and so we can bring more. You told us a lot of really good stuff here. So you told us that management is a very big umbrella, and if you want to manage a nimble organization, you have to think about different aspects. On leadership, it was the first one I asked you, and said that's part of it. If you want my organization to change, I must lead the change. I must show the way. I must have a vision and make people following me. That makes a lot of sense. There is a part that you briefly discussed, but I understand that's important, especially in the organizations you are following in the Silicon Valley, which is the platform or the business model is scalable. You have to think it as scalable from the beginning. You cannot scale a single person work. You cannot scale a structure who depends on, who cannot be copied or who cannot be structured for scale. So you have to think as something from scale since from the beginning, especially on Silicon Valley. Technology takes a very good, important part of it. So when they create something based on technology, those technologies are are already prepared or designed to be scalable,
Yeah.
and not something that you cannot scale. So the business model and the technology must be designed from scratch to be scaled.
Mm,
That's part of the Silicon Valley DNA, and that's really, really interesting.
mm,
There's another part of it that's not exactly on the structure of the organization, but in the way people think or the way people act on those organizations, the behavior. And so you call it the mindset, right?
mm,
And you use it two words for that, the mindset and the culture. I believe if we look for a single person, it's a mind, we could call a mindset. If it's a shared mindset, we could
mm,
call that a culture. And a culture who is focused on disruption, not just accepting disruption, but probably creating disruption
mm.
in the business. So propose to disruption with high risk tolerance and with people empowered. You didn't use a devil's word, but you said a flat structure where people can take decisions.
Yeah.
I'm using the word empowered.
Yeah.
For,
Empowering employees is definitely part of this model. It's also another part is transparent and widely distributed information. So you see an openness and transparency in the organization regarding information, because you cannot create a scalable, nimble organization if you don't distribute the relevant information to everyone. So in many organizations, you sit and keep, it's a question of who should access the information rather than who should, you know, who who should, you sort of turn it around and you ask the other question, who for some reason shouldn't, have the information. I mean, the default should always be that everyone should be able to have the relevant information. And then the question is, okay, what sort of few percentage of the information can we not share, right? Uh,
Mhm.
so I think that is also a very important part of it. um, you more or less set up an organization where everyone could be decision makers and sort of run their work very efficiently and be able to make decisions. And of course, it's on certain levels, it's not that they make all decisions. I mean, the strategic decision of the firm is, of course, based on their recommendations, but then at the end, it's decided, at the top what they're going to focus on, and that strategy as well has to be agile, right? So adaptive. So, and we didn't talk about that, but I mean, the use of agile methodology uh, in work processes, of course, helping as well to manage nimbly, an organization more nimble, but also agile strategy. I mean, strategy just to maybe stop working with a PowerPoint. That was, I remember I did this kind of strategy documentation for a big telco, and I think it was, I mean, we were up to 100 pages. And then you did it over 3 years, right? And that doesn't create any agile or adaptive strategy, because after 1 year of work, you don't really want to go in and change that. So you need to maybe start working with strategy on PowerPoints, make it easier and more frequent to change and update them if it doesn't, fit the reality or not, right?
Okay, so what you're bringing is related, I would say, to practices. That's another topic that you said about creating a nimble organization, a set of practices, and you said a lot of those practices are being copied from Silicon Valley to other places of the world, and between those practices are these rapid or these short cycles of re-evaluating strategy, re-evaluating your actions, and learning from what you have done. You also mentioned it before when we were talking about risk tolerance, creating experiments, trying to do experimentation, creating, and so a lot of techniques that we have today to try and learn from that, creating minimum viable products, as they used to say in the agile world, or creating some tests or proof of concept and trying to learn about that and if you have a long-term plan, you cannot, that you are not open to change, you are not going to be nimble.
Right.
I wonder if those practices are very well suited in the Silicon Valley, because people in the Silicon Valley has this mindset that you said. They have high risk tolerance. They are open to disruption. They want to disrupt the world.
Mm.
Maybe in some other organizations, the mindset could be different, and
Mm.
those practices can be not shaped for them.
Mm.
If someone who's hearing us is a manager who
Mm.
works in a very traditional organization, not in the Silicon Valley, a very 50 years organization who have a very traditional way of working, but they see the need of change, they see that they want to be more nimble.
Mm.
How can they change their organizational culture or the corporate culture? How can they change their own mindsets, and
Mm.
after that, their team's mindset?
Mm. So the culture is very depending on the leadership. So to change a culture is not easy. Usually it takes years. It's to change the mindset of all those people that believed in something and then now they need to believe in something new. But I mean, usually it's triggered by something. It could be triggered by economic problems, or they are seeing competitors doing something, or they are threatened by a new player from another industry, or whatever. And it triggered them to understand that, okay, we cannot continue to work as we did, or as we do. One example that I got from, I think it was Fujitsu, was really interesting. The CEO there just understood that they had to change because, they were structured in a way so they couldn't sort of feedback or solve a customer problem. It took them like 6 months to solve that, and then he compared a startup that after 6 months was valued to, I don't know how many, if it was billions already. And he just thought, if if that is the value creation that is possible to create in 6 months, why can we not be faster and solve, be more responsive and solve this faster than 6 months? This old model doesn't really work, right? We need to work in a different way. So that was a trigger for them to start changing. And so leadership is extremely important. The top leadership must be behind this. They must believe in the need to change. They must behave accordingly. One thing they can do is to to communicate that they expect, for example, more nimbleness in the organization, more adaptability and changes, that they allow more risk taking, that that is, as you mentioned, experimentation, to try to quickly learn about new avenues that you might need to take as a company. That it's important that the managers and the leaders are setting up some kind of structure for being able to do that. So it's not, in one way it's not hard, but in another way it's extremely hard. Why I say that is that to become nimble, we know so much about how you can become nimble. We know that you need to decentralize decision power. We know that you cannot be a very hierarchical, bureaucratic organization. We know that we can use, for example, cross-functional teams as task forces to solve problems or jump on opportunities faster. We know a lot of things, but for some reason it just take time, or it's very hard for certain organizations to do it. And I guess it's because it's not in line with, the historical way of doing things. It's a threat to power structures. It's a number of, I think, soft factors that is stopping that change rather than rational reasons for stopping that change.
Makes a lot of sense. We can bring that to a personal level when we have to change something that's in a habit that we are used to do. Like I'm starting gym this year, so I decided that I want to go to the gym twice a week. I know it's important. I know how good it is for me. I know that if I'm not, I like to play basketball, and I know if I'm not going to the gym and exercise, I won't be able to play basketball because I'm going to hurt myself.
Right.
So all the information is here, but it
Yeah.
must come here, and that's the hard part. So I know what I have to do, but I hate to go to the gym. I think it's so boring,
Yeah.
and I have to force myself to change.
Mm.
I believe that's the same in some organizations. So you're talking about the trigger, and I bet a lot of organizations are feeling that trigger. The water is hitting them from below, and they say, "Oh, I have to start doing something, or my boat's going to sink." And
I mean,
but
what surprised me is that if there's, there's an index which I think is pretty interesting, that is measuring the company's market cap or market valuation, right? And then compare different regions in the world. So where are the most valued companies? From what countries are they? Where are they listed? On what stock exchange? And what we see here is that certain regions in the world are falling behind. So if you are the manager or the even the CEO of a company where you see that the market value of the company is have been going down over the last 20 years or so, and it's not turning, it's not changing, it maybe not even flattening out, this just continue down, then obviously something is wrong. And I just think it's so surprising that so few companies, I mean, and their board of directors ask that question, why, what are you going to do about it, right? And to become nimble is, I will say, we talk about the importance for scalability. And as part of scalability, of course, then to be, able to sort of create the next generation of businesses as well, because otherwise you will not see that market value increasing or staying static. It will just go down. And I think it's I think we maybe should focus more on that kind of metrics in the future, because I think too few are doing that. So and then coming back to nimbleness, we didn't discuss that, but this quick learning, we talked about experimentation. That's one sort of type of quick learning. Another one is real-time data on customer behavior, right? Or as you mentioned, I think you mentioned that before, always learn from projects, to have this review meetings and learn from what went well and not as well. We need to just speed up and make all those learning process much more rapid as well. And here technology is of course something we can use.
for sure. And Mania is, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correct, Mania. If not, sorry, but she said integrating culture into processes such as hiring, performance management, and what Dr. Annika mentioned, decision making. So this nimble culture should be integrated into the structure of the organization, into the process, into decisions, into the business rules, into the policies. And one way that you mentioned this integration in the structure of the organization, and that caught my attention, was that in most part of the organizations you have in the Silicon Valley, you have two top managers, one looking for the future and the other one taking care of the present.
Yeah.
And both have similar, let's say, power into the organization. I believe, or I'm guessing that that's the point. But that probably brings also some conflicts when someone is trying to change what the other one is trying to maintain. How
Right.
to manage that conflict?
So here again, this is so interesting. So if we go back to that culture, and I don't think I really got it when I started to look at those companies that really blow my mind away. For example, I started Google for 1 year in 2010 to 2014, and I wrote a book, and now it's coming out with a second edition. So when I review Google one more time in 2023, I sort of got this insight of how much good the founders actually did regarding setting the culture and the condition for the this environment for innovation that Google created. And to give an example, this kind of statement that we disrupt our own business if we believe it's the best for our customers or for our users. What they did was that they created a number of statements, right? Facebook had the same: fast is better than slow. And I don't think I got that, when I started to look at this in 2010, that it was prompts. It was extremely important prompts of the culture. And it wasn't that, that everyone had to follow this all the time, but it definitely created the expectation, the top leaders' expectations, and also the mandate, right, for what was prioritized in the organization. So by going out and saying, we disrupt the organization if we believe it's the best for the user. Okay, then everyone knows that. And it's, they cannot come later and say, oh my God, what you are changing and disrupting. And I signed up for this job because I believe in this and I don't want change and all that. If you're on a top manager level, it's very important that you have metrics and you are rewarded based on those common agendas, right? So if you have that we disrupt, if we believe that's the best for the user, then you cannot have one manager in the organization or at the top that is rewarded, another manager that is not rewarded. And that is also commonly a problem, that an organization might not develop new businesses because it might not create value for everyone, right? And then it become a threat. But if everyone is rewarded and can actually get a win out of this by supporting this change, and then in connection with and in combination with a very strong culture and a very strong leadership that is repeating those kind of prompts over and over and over again, then it can happen, right? But you need to be extremely aligned, both culturally, I would say, performance wise, so you don't have, as the listener said before, which was extremely well said, how do you say maninha?
I don't know exactly.
Anyway, it was very, very good, because you have to make sure that culture is part of everything in that system of yours, everything. And if you are hiring people that not share those kind of values, then it will be problems. If you are doing performance measurement and you measure only saved cost, you will not find any innovation at all. So you need to think through everything. Will this hinder or will this foster, right? And then I truly like the prompts. And that was something I never saw before. Tesla had it, Facebook had it, Twitter had it, Google had it, LinkedIn had it. This kind of another prompt was we believe in the 70-21. Okay, you can say, yeah, but that is portfolio management. Yeah, but it make it very easy for everyone to understand. We expect you to focus 70% of your time on your core job, but that is not enough. We also expect you to be part of either a strategic project, the 20%, and or a moonshot, maybe a whole new thing like cloud business for Google or something. We expect that, because if you only do your 70%, guess what? You will not do very well career-wise, right? So it's to break this down into every details.
That's interesting because when you mention the prompts, it's like the beauty of simplicity. So you summarize a very important topic of the culture in
Exactly.
something people can absorb quickly, easily, and you repeat that, put it on the wall, put it everywhere, and so people can absorb that very easily.
Exactly.
But that's not enough if it's not aligned in the process, in the way people are valued, in the way people are rewarded or punished. So I
Yes.
like a definition of culture as the way people behave
Mm.
based on the way they are rewarded or
Mm.
punished. And
Mm.
so usually if people don't innovate in an organization, it may be because they can see innovation as a punishment. There's
Mm.
a statement I often hear in some organizations
Mm.
is uh, all initiative will be hardly punished here.
Mhm.
Because if you have an initiative, they're
Mhm.
going to give you more work. They're going to give you a lot of questions. They're going to, in some way, you are not going to feel yourself rewarded, but you're going to
Yeah.
feel yourself punished. And that shapes a culture. That shapes how people behave because
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and that is crazy. I have a similar experience where it's a hill. Every time an employee come up with an idea for improvement or even innovation, that person know that that will cost me a lot of time. It would be a lot of struggle. It would be a lot of discussion. I need to fill out a number of forms. And then in the worst, it might be, committees, and it's going up and down the hierarchy. So I think we overcomplicate it. I mean, something that one company here did was the bureaucracy busters, right? And I know other companies that have introduced that too. If we do the nimble buster, right? Let's have one that is the nimble buster that annually, or twice a year, is doing an analysis from a nimbleness perspective and say, okay, I found those red flags. Okay, we have we send decision making up and down the ladder. That is not creating nimbleness. We are we have uh, yeah, we don't access customer data in an efficient way, and we don't distribute that data to people that needs it. Okay, that doesn't create nimbleness. I mean, it's so easy if you would, take that kind of perspective, go in, be the detective, be the police, and then just, identify the yellow and the red flags, right?
I like that. I wonder about the next step. So having someone doing the analysis and understanding where the gaps for nimbleness, let's say the blockers that hint nimbleness in an organization,
Yeah.
and and this investigator, this
Mhm.
detective, is going to identify all those points,
Right.
and then he brings a lot of he puts lights in some problems, but the organization is not used to deal with those problems.
Right.
And so, what else do we need to make that warning signs that the detective detected become a real change? How I like the first idea. I'm wondering about the next one. How can we transform the organization
Mm.
to or bring that what do we need to bring that as a priority for the organization to really change, and not just put that on a box
So
and
if we
let's
go
forget
back to
about
what
those.
if we go back to what we talked about, I mean, we also need maybe even the board, but the top, executive leadership to truly buy in on that nimbleness is good. Okay, nimbleness is something we want. Um, for other organization, one organization I'm thinking about right now is, we need continuous learning. Without continuous learning, we are gone. Okay, so there is this kind of very strong belief among the executive team that is then transferred in to everything, as part of the value culture values expressed. It's expressed in personnel meetings. It's maybe expressed in a way in performance reviews or whatever, right? And then you can have this nimble busters, to do annual, analysis or mapping, heat maps. Where are the risks? And then you need to change by starting small, I think. I mean, in many cases, the successful change has started with one thing. So you take, one thing that you identified maybe that is definitely making you not very nimble. It's actually the opposite. And then, you decide as an organization with the commitment from the top that, okay, we're going to find an alternative way of doing that, right? So you pick one, and then you need to show a success, and then you might pick another one. And then slowly you might start moving towards that right direction. But it's usually not that you just magically use that wand and then you just become the perfect organization. It's a process of 5 to 10 years. You just take one by one by one, but you need to have that belief that this is super important. It's not just that we are in AI, okay? It's that we are adaptable, nimble, innovative, whatever we believe in. And we need, some of those as the North Stars, right? For the
Yeah,
organization.
and interesting, I'm going to say sometimes some organizations see change as the same as projects. So if I need a change, let's say I saw something that makes me not very nimble, and I
Mm,
need to change that. May that be a process, a system, I don't know, but whatever I see. So I create a project for that,
mm,
and the project has or some number of resources dedicated to that change, and that project at some point ends. That's a way of doing change,
mm,
but that's not the same as being a nimble organization who is changing all the time. So
mm,
creating an organization able to change and adapt and reorganize and sense
mm,
and respond uh, repeatedly.
mm,
May use projects for some large stuff, let's say, that
mm.
need an extra resources, but creating those kind of behaviors of continuous changing, and that nimble buster, I love it, the term, the nimble buster could be at some point everyone in the organization. I think that's the target.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
everyone is a nimble buster. Everyone is looking, how can we be more nimble? What can we do? And how can I influence my organization to change and to
Yeah.
adapt, to become more efficient, more productive, more aligned to the strategy?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's real
Maybe
beautiful.
we'll have a small team working on it. Create heroism and reward system. It's kind of company award. Is usually also something very good to do if you want. I remember one company over here, engineering driven company, that no one wanted to become a manager. Everyone wanted to be an engineer because that was the most fun and challenging, and so they started to introduce this management award,
Mhm.
both to show the value of management, what is management bringing to the table, right? And also to show good management. So it was different reasons. So say that we introduced the nimbleness award to the unit, business unit, or the function, or whatever, how we slice it, that can show that they are, as mostly nimble in the organization, and they have actively worked to become more nimble. They have been driving 2-3 initiatives during the year, and for that they are now awarded, right, by the CEO. So I just think we just need to make it, very explicit, fun, and rewarding, and and involve people, make people be part of this. I don't believe very much in taking in people from outside, like the big consultancy teams coming in and doing the work for the organization. I think that is potentially, sometimes it could be valuable, but for change specifically could be very short term. So.
Yeah, change must, again, it's not just changing here, it's changing here.
Yes.
So change must come from inside. That's what I
Yes.
mean.
Yes.
The organization must want to change, need to change by a trigger, as you said. But transforming the culture comes from inside. You can have someone guiding, give some guidance, of course, helping, but no one from outside can change us. We have to change ourselves. Perfect. I like it very much, this conversation, Annika. It was very, very enlightening and very interesting. Thank you very much. I wonder about your book and your work. This is the time that I would like to bring that to the table. And for people who are watching this video live or watching it later recorded and want to know more about you, what have you written about? How can they find you, and how can they connect with you for more information?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking. So as I sort of touched on, I went to Silicon Valley in 2009, and I've been writing a lot of books now, up to 17 books. This nimble management, I call it management for entrepreneurship, but I could have called it nimble management. I think I really like it. Was in my world, it was very much described by me in 2014 when I released my first book, and that was about Google. And then after that, I broadened my studies. So I looked at 6 different companies in Silicon Valley. So that book is called The Silicon Valley Model, Management for Entrepreneurship, where I compare, I have Tesla and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Google, and one more company. So what I try to say is that if you are interested in getting hints, tip, advice of how those companies became extremely entrepreneurial and fast-moving and scalable, you can find this in a very dense form in those books, and they should be pretty easy to read. I use it, as sort of common language as I can, and you can find them on Amazon. So and both the Google model is coming out now, 2nd edition in 2024, and the Silicon Valley model, Management for Entrepreneurship, came out in December in its 2nd edition. So that is just updated. But then I also written about China and Chinese companies that are extremely nimble as well now. And I've been also describing about GE Appliances, an American 100-year-old company that decided to transform in 2016, and did that very fast, and went from 0 growth to double-digit growth in only 2 years or so. So So there's a number of books out there. They are in audio as well. If you don't want to read, you can listen. So they are in English and they are in Chinese. Unfortunately, not in Portuguese or in Spanish yet. I'm working on it. So
That would be nice. And people can find that on
Amazon.
Amazon
Yeah.
Books,
If
looking
they
for her name.
Google my name, Annika Steiber, and they will find my books on Amazon. Amazon Books, Annika Steiber, and they can also contact me through LinkedIn.
Okay, I'll put your LinkedIn link behind this video on YouTube. It's already on LinkedIn. If you are watching it on LinkedIn, you can see Dr. Annika name and just click. But if it's on YouTube, I'm going to add to the description of this video as well. Dr. Annika, thank you very much for joining me today. It was a real pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be part of this podcast, and I hope it will bring value to some of the listeners. So thank you for inviting me. Thank you very
I'm
much.
sure it will. It brought for me a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank
Please
you.
stay a little bit about after we're ending so we can have a chat. So for the rest of people who are watching us online, thank you very much. See you in the next episode of the Brazilian BA Guest.